At exactly 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, Marcus Webb's life as he knew it ended, not with a bang, but with 3 sharp knocks on his front door that would change everything. What happened in the next 72 hours would test every single preparedness decision he'd made over the previous decade. Some of those decisions would save his family's life. Others would nearly destroy them. This is the story of day zero, the moment martial law came to America. A one man's desperate fight to protect what was his. But more importantly, this is about the 5 critical mistakes Marcus made that you need to avoid, and the 3 decisions that ultimately saved everything. By the end of this story, you'll understand exactly what happens when theory becomes terrifying reality. My name is Marcus Webb. This is my story. I've been prepping for 12 years, spent over $80,000 on supplies, training, and equipment, read every manual, practiced every scenario. I thought I was ready. I wasn't. The knock came during what we call the silent hours, that dead space between 2 and 4 a.m. when even the dogs stopped barking. My wife Sarah grabbed my arm before I was fully awake. Marcus, someone's at the door. Through our security camera, I could see them, the National Guard soldiers, 1 local sheriff's deputy, and a man in a dark suit I didn't recognize. They weren't requesting entry. They were preparing to force it. Mr. Webb, we know you're in there. This is a mandatory wellness check under Executive Order 14,177. You have 30 seconds to open this door voluntarily. My heart hammered against my ribs. Executive Order 14,177. I'd read about it, dismissed it as conspiracy theory, but here it was, real and standing on my porch at 3 a.m. Sarah looked at me with those eyes, the ones that said, asterisk, you promised this would never happen, asterisk. Do we run? She whispered. That was my first critical decision, and I made the wrong one. No, I said, we've done nothing wrong. We cooperate. They leave, we're fine. I opened the door. The man in the suit didn't waste time with pleasantries. Mr. Webb, I'm Agent Reeves, FEMA Region 4. We have information that you possess firearms registered under your name for public safety during the current national emergency. We need you to surrender those weapons for temporary government custody. Temporary, I heard myself say. For how long? That's not your concern right now, sir. Everything I learned, everything I prepared for, and in that moment I froze. Because the alternative to cooperation was immediate arrest, and I had my wife and the kids sleeping upstairs. I surrendered 7 firearms that morning, but ID made my first critical preparation decision 3 years earlier. ID only registered half my weapons. By sunrise, our neighborhood looked like occupied territory. Military vehicles at every intersection, checkpoints on roads that just yesterday were free highways, and drones, so many drones hovering over residential areas like mechanical vultures. The official announcement came at 6 a.m. due to escalating civil unrest and threats to national security. The president has authorized deployment of federal military forces to maintain order. A state of emergency is in effect. Curfew hours are 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Violation will result in immediate detention. Sarah's sister called, crying. They emptied our bank accounts, said it's a temporary asset freeze for economic stabilization. Marcus, we have $300 in cash and no access to our own money. My second critical mistake was assuming my hidden cash stash was enough. I have $15,000 hidden in my home. Sounds like a lot until you realize grocery stores were only accepting cash, prices had tripled overnight, and that money needed to last indefinitely. Other families who'd mocked my prepping were already desperate. Our neighbor Tom, who'd once called me paranoid Marcus, knocked on my door at noon. Marcus, man, I know we've had our differences, but my kids haven't eaten since yesterday. Do you have anything you can spare? Here's where my preparation actually paid off. 3 years earlier, I'd split my food storage between 3 locations: my home, my brother's property 40 miles away, and a storage unit registered under my wife's maiden name. I gave Tom 3 days of food, not because I was generous, because I knew starving neighbors become desperate neighbors, and desperate neighbors become dangerous. But then came the second knock. This time at 2 p.m., Mr. Webb, we're conducting mandatory inventory inspections of residential food storage. Any household with more than 30 days of food supplies is required to contribute to community distribution centers. They've been tipped off. Someone, maybe Tom, maybe someone else, had reported my stockpile. And here is where my third preparation decision saved everything. I built a false wall in my basement. Behind it was 6 months of food storage. In the visible basement storage room, Exactly 28 days of supplies. This is everything, I told the inspector. He cataloged it, marked his tablet, and looked at me with eyes that said, I know you're lying, but I can't prove it. You're one of the smart ones. He said quietly as he left, keep it that way. Day 2 is when I made my third mistake, the one that almost cost us everything. Cell towers were still operational, but heavily monitored. I knew this. I'd studied the protocols. Yet in a moment of weakness, I texted my brother, situation bad, may need to move to your location soon. 30 minutes later, 3 vehicles surrounded our house. Mr. Webb, you Ray being detained for questioning regarding intent to violate movement restrictions and possible coordination of civil resistance. They didn't arrest me. They didn't need to. The message was clear. We're watching everything, and we will come back. Sarah grabbed my arm as they left. Marcus, you promised. You promised this wouldn't happen to us. And that's when I saw it in her eyes, not just fear, but the death of trust. All those years of me saying we're prepared, and here we were, losing control hour by hour. That night, I made the hardest decision of my life, the one that went against every prepper instinct I had. I gathered the family. We're going to look completely normal, completely compliant. We go to the community meetings. We volunteer at the distribution centers. We become the most visible, cooperative citizens in this neighborhood. But Dad, my son Jake protested. You always said, what I said was survival comes first. And right now, survival means hiding it. Plain sight. This is what they do teach you in prepper forums. Sometimes the best camouflage isn't hiding in the woods, it is hiding among the sheep. For the next week, we were model citizens. Sarah volunteered at the community kitchen. I helped organize the neighborhood watch program, which was really just government surveillance with a friendly name. We smiled at checkpoints. We thanked soldiers for keeping us safe. And every night, we moved supplies from behind that false wall to new hiding spots. They'd never think to search. Buried in the backyard under our daughter as swing sat hidden inside the walls of our shed, even concealed inside furniture. But then came day 12, the day everything escalated. They announced phase 2 on a Wednesday morning. Mandatory relocation to secure residential zones for all citizens in our county. Translation, FEMA camps. This is for your safety. They said, temporary housing while infrastructure is restored. I'd read about those camps once. You go in. You don't come out until they decide you can. That afternoon, I made my fourth critical decision, the one I'd been avoiding because it meant admitting I'd been wrong about everything. We're leaving, I told Sarah. Tonight. Leaving to where? Every highway has checkpoints. Every rural road is patrolled. To your cousin's property in Montana. Off the grid. No digital footprint connecting us to it. This was my fourth preparation decision paying off. 5 years earlier, I'd established a bug-out location so remote and so disconnected from our identity that even I rarely thought about it. Sarah's cousin Rachel lived on 200 acres that weren't in any database, accessed by roads that weren't on any map, but getting them meant traveling 1,400 miles through military-controlled territory. We left at 11 p.m. using the one vehicle ID kept off all registration databases, a 1978 pickup truck ID bought with cash, never registered, and kept in a rented barn 3 miles away. Our route avoided all major highways, stuck to county roads, forestry access paths, even dry creek beds. It took us 6 days to travel a distance that should have taken 20 hours. On day 3, we ran a checkpoint. Not intentionally, we just came around a corner, and there it was. The soldier raised his hand. I slowed down but didn't stop. Dad, what are you doing? My daughter Emma whispered. Trust me. I rolled down the window, smiled, and held up a forged essential travel authorization document I'd created 2 years earlier just in case. The soldier studied it, studied me, looked in the truck bed at the tarp covering our supplies. Where are you headed? Medical supply run to Billings, insulin for the diabetic community there. Orders here. I handed him another forged document. He stared at me for what felt like an hour. Go ahead. God bless. Sarah started crying the moment we were out of sight. I can't believe that worked. It worked because I made it look official enough that questioning it was more effort than waving us through. That's the secret they don't want you to know. Bureaucracy is their weakness. We reached Rachel's property on day 18 of martial law. She'd been prepping longer than I had. Her family had lived off-grid for 3 generations. You made it, she said simply. A lot of people didn't. That night, gathered around a fire that no drone could see through the forest canopy, Sarah finally asked the question I've been dreading. Was it worth it? All those years, all that money, all that preparation? I looked at my kids, alive and safe. Looked at the food we brought, the seeds for planting, the skills we learned. I made mistakes, I admitted, big ones. I was too trusting at first, too connected to my location, too visible in my preparations. But Sarah pressed. But we're alive. We're together. We have resources. Most people out there have none of those things right now. Rachel added something that changed my entire perspective. The families that survived best were the ones with the most guns or the most food. They were the ones with community, with flexibility, with the ability to adapt when their perfect plans fell apart. 3 months later, martial law was still in effect, but out there, in the wilderness of Montana, surrounded by people who chosen freedom over compliance, we'd rebuild something, not just survival, actual living. If there's one lesson from day zero, it's this: preparation isn't about having a perfect plan. It's about having backup plans for when your plans fail. It's about community you can trust. It's about being invisible when you need to be, immobile when you have to be. I lost my home, lost most of my supplies, lost the comfortable life I'd built, but I kept what mattered. And in the end, that's all that counts. If you're watching this, you're already ahead of 90% of people. You understand that preparation isn't paranoia, it's responsibility. Learn from my mistakes. Build your networks now. Diversify everything. And remember, the best preparation is the one that lets you adapt when everything goes wrong. Because it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Stay free,